Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Live Chat with James, coming to you from the ProPix TV studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Tonight, we're going to actually take a different route on the show that you're used to. Generally, we cover highlights of different news articles and deep dives into stories that are making news around the world. Now, today we're actually going to take a look at a book that came out several years back and actually is currently in the middle of a rewrite to update and include a lot more technology of today's era. Now, this one here, as I said, came out about 10 years ago, but still has a lot of very valuable information. As we watch the news and we see the crisis of violence when it comes to youth, whether it's in schools or in communities and in the home, of course, one of the big factors is that people tend to look back. And hindsight, as they say, is always 20/20. So you can look back and see indicators and warning signs of violence within youth or individuals. And unfortunately, when you're looking back at it, it's too late to respond or to prevent and intervene there. So we're going to take a look at this book tonight. We're going to talk about that, and we can go over it in some detail. Now, of course, given the length of the book, and I'm just going to change our background here. I forgot to do that before we started. But yeah, we're going to take a look at this book, and we're going to take a look at whatever we can get through within the hour. And then, of course, we'll continue on over the weekend, over the next few days and the weekend to look at that. Bear with me just a moment, folks, as I change our backdrop here. As we see, I jumped online and forgot to change our drop here, so we will change that right now. But again, don't forget, folks, that you're always welcome. While I'm setting this up, you're always welcome to add where you're joining the program from, where you are watching, and of course, any of your feedback throughout the program, feel free to add it into the comment section. My apologies there for the delay on that. But again, we're going to take a look at this book, Youth Violence and International Crisis, Fighting Violence by and Against Youth. And again, we look at it as a lot of times it is in response or reaction to violence or incidents of violence within our schools, within our communities, and so forth. And not enough time is spent actually dedicated to raising awareness and education on the earlier stages of warning signs, indicators, prevention, and intervention strategies. So that's where I figured we would cover this book. And again, we may not get through it all tonight, but we're going to go through for about an hour, as we normally do here on Live Chat. And I would love for you to be able to respond and share your ideas as well and join the conversation as we talk about it. And so again, this book is in the middle of an update, so we'll definitely bring more information as the book's updated. But again, if you're interested in getting a copy through ProPix Media, by all means, just email us at ProPixCanada, PROPICS Canada, at gmail.com. We can send you a free e-copy of this book as well. And this way you can have the book. But again, when you look at literacy rates around the world, a lot of times that's overlooked when people say, oh, well, if you only read about this or read about that and knew about this and educated yourself and so forth. So that's why I thought that this is a great opportunity and a great platform to be able to reach out, and not only because people are restricted in time and restricted in the ability to take a look at that or to find the resources and the materials, but also the fact that there are literacy rates that play into that as well. So I thought, what a great platform. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about a lot of the information in the book, but also your opinions. Be welcome to share your opinions in the comments section. We can have conversations about it as we go. And again, we'll do this over the next few days to cover a lot of the material in here to raise awareness about violence prevention, intervention, and of course, how you can look at that. One of the big questions, of course, when you're talking about youth violence and criminality or just antisocial behavior is the impact of media, whether that is through the eras. People have been concerned about music playing a role in violence. Then it was movies and television, and now it's the internet. And let's face facts here is that when it comes to video games and media influence on acts of violence, it's not so much the media consumption that is the issue. It is looking at the individual who is consuming that material. If someone has a very well-adjusted and healthy outlook and ability for cognitive development, as well as the ability to really keep a calm mind and work their problems through, then that reduces the likelihood. Now, if someone has a predisposition to violence or to mental health issues and so forth, then it's important to watch what media they're consuming. If they are in a position where there is maybe an imbalance or just a different outlook on the material that they're consuming. But again, the video games or movies and that are not going to turn a well-adjusted or normal child, and I don't mean that in a negative way when I say abnormal. What I mean is that there can be chemical imbalances, there can be depression, there can be trauma, there can be many things that impact a youth or a child in their developmental stages that contributes to being more prone to violent outbursts or actions. So again, it can be a very big product of environment, not just video games or media. And again, if there's a predisposition to violence, then of course, then that can be a concern. And that's where parents need to be aware and alert and understand. And that goes for others as well. Now, this book is available in libraries throughout the world, depending on where you are, I guess, and what your library is. So if you're interested, I did put the ISBN, or the International Book Number, in the description so that you can pull that up and maybe find it online. I know that in terms of ordering a copy online, the book is out of print now, as it's going to be going for an update, and there will be an updated version available in the next little while. But again, we do have ebook copies available that we can send you free of charge. If you're interested in getting an ebook copy, just email us at propixcanada@gmail.com. No matter where you are in the world, we'll be happy to send you an ebook copy of this PDF. And again, anywhere worldwide at no charge, we can email you an e-copy of this book. Now, it starts out to actually define what is violence. So let's take a look at that first, and we'll work our way from there. Now, according to this book, it says that violence involves the act of causing pain to oneself or others. This can include physical or emotional pain. Words can hurt more than fists, so it's important for us to think before we speak to others. Typical acts of violence include bullying, fighting, assaults at all levels, self-inflicted injuries, exclusion of others within peer groups, and more. This will explore areas of violence and some ways to deal with these. Further help can be obtained online, and again, you can email us for a copy of this book, as well as keep notified of when the next edition will be available worldwide. Unfortunately, at this time, this book is only available in English, and so will the rewrite. But if there's anybody out there that wants to translate the book and work with us on that through Propix Media Publishing, then you're welcome to do that. Now let's take a look at what is referred to as the three keys theory. And that is a theory to crime reduction through the three different keys of a child's life, which is home, school, and community. So those are the three main pillars of a child's foundation for growth, development, and intellectual cognition, and their value systems as they achieve it. Now, the three key theory to youth crime reduction, and again, as I said, are the home, school, and community aspects. These keys, when used, can offer both security or freedom. They can be used to help lock out dangers or to be used to unlock opportunities. When the keys or even one of the keys is broken, it can affect the ability to do either. This theory presents the proverbial master key. The master key can work with each lock individually, or it can open all three locks in order to allow things to flow together. The key ring represents the organization which keeps all of those three keys together and working as one. Now, the systemic breakdown of the three keys of a child's life is leading us back to an age of anarchy and chaos. And that's what we're seeing is, and I don't mean that in a mass sense, I just mean in terms of the mental state of some individuals. Now, the fundamentals of family education and a sense of community are being lost to what we refer to as an Xbox generation or a social media generation. And again, the fundamentals are being overlooked in terms of that capacity. There's less interaction between the individuals and their peers as well as family members. And it's almost a virtual world where they are texting, where they are speaking through the headsets while playing Minecraft or any of the other video games. So therefore, it gives that disconnect between the actual physical interaction with others. So again, that becomes a concern if you are trying to really develop a full and balanced life. And that's where you need to monitor the use of technology by your children and your youth. Make sure that they have a healthy balance of interaction with others outside of school as well. Can be very important on that level. Now, we should blame the continued ignorance of each other and each other's beliefs, because absolutely, as we look at it, we need to understand that as we disconnect from the actual in-person interactions with others, we're starting to lose the foundation and the understanding of others and different cultures, different backgrounds, different lifestyles, and all of that. And it becomes more influenced from the content in which that you are seeing online and being subjected to. And if you have a youth or a child that sees something over and over enough times, it starts to get etched in their brain as a fact. And that's where you have issue with certain social media content. And that's why governments around the world are calling on platforms such as TikTok and X and others to be more upfront when it comes to protecting the children. YouTube as well, when it comes to the algorithms, to protect children from potentially harmful or almost brainwashing by the constant flow of that digital age information flow. What's contributing to a child being bullied? Well, maybe the child is lacking direction in their life. It could be that they are a victim of abuse or neglect in the home. Again, that could also be a contributor to the bullies world too. If they are being bullied or abused at home, they could be looking outside the home to regain a sense of control and power over their own life, and in doing so act out against others to feel a sense of control over them that they have lost in the home environment. So again, that's a very important point. When they get around their peers, as I said, they can act in an aggressive manner as well, and that is something that they are being taught as acceptable. And that, again, is how they are learning to deal with conflict resolution or to deal with emotion, pain, anger, or just confusion. So again, it could be at the home environment, and that's why we look at the 3 pillars as the main contributing forces into a child's development and their healthy outlook on dealing with problems or situations. Now, they could have a very healthy home style. It could be a chemical imbalance, it could be depression, it could be trauma, it could be abuse that the parents were unaware of at some level as well. So again, it's maybe related to what we call the home life or the family circle, because we're not just talking directly at the actual household itself. We can be looking at the exterior influences within the family setting, distant relatives, friends of family, and so forth, and how that interplays with the development or the potential trauma that a child experiences, as well as antisocial behaviors that could influence their actions outside of the home. And that's an important influence that we've got to remember. Now, again, as I said, they could be bullied at home. They could be bullied on the sports field at taking part in the community activities, extracurricular activities such as, playing soccer, hockey, basketball, being out at recreation centers, being out at, out of school programs such as, arts and crafts or film or anything like that. So anything outside of the home that's more community focused, they could be experiencing an issue with individuals there as well. And when you have broken down the communication level with your child or someone that you're responsible for, when that is lessened, and again, people are focused on screens, they have less time together, people are working a lot more hours in terms of parental figures or guardians, and it's tougher and tougher to make sure that ends meet at the end of the month. So again, that can play an influence as well, because they don't feel as though they have the ability to talk to someone and get advice, or they may be scared to, just feeling that the speaking out makes them inadequate or that they are a failure. And that's important as well, to make sure they have the confidence and the comfort level to know that they can talk to somebody, even if it's a brother, an aunt, an uncle, a clergy person, somebody else at their place of worship. All of these different factors can help to give those opportunities of discussion and for them to seek advice. When children are more isolated, when they are more introverted and they stay at home, they play on the computer, they play on their phones, all of these sort of things, again, you're taking away that support system outside of the home or even inside of the home, in which they may feel comfortable to speak out and get help and to address issues that they may be experiencing, certain confusions over development or life and such. So again, very important to keep that level of communication flowing, and to not have it always through text or online. It is very important to have that healthy face-to-face communication and the feeling that there is safety in doing so. Now, again, when you're looking at different abuses or neglect in the home, again, it can give them a sense that they don't have the power, that they are stripped of that and therefore acting out. When they then go to school and they are, instead of acting out and bullying others to regain a sense of self-control or a sense of power over others, they also may be losing a sense of belonging. And as human beings, we are a social creature. We look for the social interaction, acceptance, and a sense of belonging with our peer groups. And that, again, if that is missing, that becomes a concern as well, because they can feel more isolated, they can feel more ostracized, and they may be subject to more bullying or are being bullied because they don't interact with others as much. So again, a big concern there, and something that is not always going to lead to violence or outbursts, but it is something that can contribute to a sense of self-deprecating behavior, self-harming behavior, or a sense that they don't belong and are not valued. So again, very important points that need to be considered. Now, of course, when you look at that, you can look at if they have a sense of need to control others or to override others, bully others, all of that. They could be masking mental health conditions too, because let's face it, as we learn more and more about mental health, we understand that there are brain chemical imbalances. There are developmental issues. There are so many factors that can play into it, that it never hurts to have an outside individual weigh in. And by that, I mean a healthcare professional, whether it's a psychiatrist, psychologist, family doctor, and have them on standby, have them as a tool, have them as a resource, and make sure that the doctor or the other individual that we're speaking of has that ability to have a rapport with your child. If your child is seeing the same doctor as you, then that's great if they feel comfortable with that doctor. But again, you may want to look at having a different doctor that you can trust, but that you don't have that direct relationship with as a doctor-patient. And the reason I say that is because even though there is the doctor-patient privilege, when it comes to children, it's a bit different. And also, as the children and youth become more about themselves and egocentric, they're going to think that, even if it's not true, that the doctor is talking to you. So by giving that little bit of separation can give a bit of a buffer zone to help your child feel a bit more comfortable and able to open up to that healthcare professional. So again, just a bit of information there. Now again, we are looking at the 3 keys to a child's life that are so rapidly clashing with each other, and society continues to add turmoil to their confusion. An example of this could be youth going through a struggle with one's sexual identity. While they're hearing the political correctness of people saying it's okay as long as they're happy, while in public they continue to hear and use derogatory terms against those who may have different lifestyle choices or maybe gay, lesbian, trans, racial insults and such that they will hear outside of, people don't think that they're listening, but children and youth are like sponges. They hear a lot more than you think, and they absorb that, and that also develops or plays into their development emotionally and mentally. So again, you've got to be aware of that and make sure that they have a safe place that they can talk about it and ask questions and be themselves. As we look at the world today, we see a lot of violence, a lot of hate, a lot of division. And again, social media plays a big role in that. When we look at even the ignorance of some political influencers and political and politicians, we'll just call it as it is, making racist or other types of comments online, trying to separate different members of the community, different groups, different religions, all of that. When you create such a division and a perceived hatred of people and bias and bigotry, then of course children are going to be more introverted when they have those concerns or when they feel that they are being picked on in those ways because they think that it is more normalized. And that's one of the hazards that we're seeing with the Trump administration. I mean, even J.D. Vance just the other day intentionally called out a senator by the wrong name, inferring a racial undertone to his comments, which was really uncalled for and ignorant. And this is coming from the Vice President of the United States. So you can just imagine, as people feel more comfortable to act in such a way in public and online, then of course you're going to be pushing children back in the level of acceptance and openness on such issues. You're pushing it back decades, if not, further. And so again, that influence is very important, and it's a shame to see where the U.S. administration is normalizing such behavior as well as others. And I don't blame it just on the U.S. administration. That was just a quick, easy example of it, and very public. So when you look at, the public image and the public opinions, again, we're seeing a very polarized look at the world right now when it comes to people and their personal life choices, their lifestyles, their who they were born to be, and their identities and their gender. So many different things that are really, even for adults now, are frustrating. So you can imagine if a child doesn't have that clarity of mind and that thought and the intelligence at that point to be able to differentiate between right and wrong when they are getting all of these mixed messages. So they may know right and wrong in the general sense, but when they're hearing all of these mixed messages going as high as the President of the United States, that really can add new levels of confusion and contribute to people acting out. And that's not only in children, but also in young adults and even older adults when you have that type of polarization of a citizenship. So again, very, very important. So as we look, there are certain ethnicities, there are certain individuals that are, being targeted more so than others right now. And again, teaching that it is okay to have anger or hate towards one group over another. And that's just not acceptable. But it is something that we're experiencing at this time in the geopolitical cycle or circles, especially in the U.S. Now, you can look at very different ways of trying to define it, but let's take a look at, looking at it from a realistic point. If you're in a dark parking lot in, say, South Central Los Angeles or Bel Air in the California region, Greater Los Angeles, for example, they're both dressed similar in fashion. They're both walking the same. They're both, very comfortable or confident, and one person is walking towards you of a certain ethnicity, and let's say they're both the same ethnicity, but one person is walking towards you that's a different ethnicity than you, and they're walking towards you in South Central or South LA, you're going to be a bit more on edge. If you're in Bel Air, you may be less on edge because you're feeling that it is a more safe community, when it could actually be the opposite, depending on the situation, of course. But it just gives you a food for thought to really visualize in your own sense. Even in your own community, if you're walking in your own community, you tend to walk with more confidence and feeling more secure. If you're in a community walking and you're not familiar with it, no matter what type of community it is or what economic status or anything else, you may be a bit more on edge or more alert or more intimidated because, again, you're out of that familiar safety zone. And that's no different for kids and youth, is that they need to feel that comfort, that confidence, and to really understand that, being street smart is all about understanding risk, being aware and alert, but not being afraid of everything. So again, you've got to be aware of that. When we look at this, we're just kind of skipping through a lot of this because I don't want to read word for word and put you to sleep. But at the same time, it's, very open to conversation here, so you guys can feel free to add to the conversation and join into the conversation by all means if you so feel. Now, as we continue on, we want to look at other issues that, we look at whether or not people are going to be accepting of themselves, but also if they're going to own their own behavior. Now, if you look at, again, I'm going to use Trump because he's such an easy target these days. But if he is not going to show any sense of responsibility for his actions and blame everything on Biden or Hillary or Obama and everybody else under the sun, but never take ownership of his shortcomings, then again, that is a very high-level leadership position in which the kids are looking to the President of the United States or others. I'm just using it as an example. But again, they are going to learn not to accept responsibility for their actions and inactions. So again, very important that they understand and see that within the social circles, whether again it's at the 3 pillars, whether it's at home, whether it's at school or out in the community, they need to be able to see that people can take ownership of their actions even when they're wrong and learn from it, and to be able to actually correct any bad behaviors, or that it's okay to hear feedback that may be or may be not correct. People can give feedback without it being aggressive or taken as an aggressive stance, but actually just trying to help people, help them to understand what it is and how to deal with it without taking it all personally and getting defensive. Now, they also want to look at the point that, there's the temptation out there and the world, and that may be when it comes to the community. And that you can look at youth gangs, you can look at social circles, you can look at sports teams, and all of that. When you do so, you want to make sure that you are monitoring the behaviors, the comings and goings, the social circles that your child is intermixing with. If they are hanging out on a street corner with a bunch of juvenile delinquents, well then guess what? Don't be shocked when your child becomes one, because they start to learn that behavior, not because they've strived to be that, but because that is the influence that's going around them. They want to be accepted, they want to be cool, they want to feel like they fit in, and therefore they may start acting out with those behaviors that are mimicking those of the peers around them. So again, it's something to keep in mind and watch for. And if all of a sudden your child's behavior or their attitude and their patterns change rapidly, then that's something you want to know why, and it could be a positive or a negative, but you want to be able to be aware of what's going on and to have that level of communication that you can speak with your child about that, and that they feel comfortable that they can come to you in a non-judgmental way, and to be able to bring concerns up. Even if they've done something wrong, you want them to feel confident in themselves and in you, that that trust is there, that they can come to you and try to work themselves out of it in a way that they take responsibility for it, and at the same time that they take action to correct their behavior or to acknowledge it and to learn from it. Very important. Now, there's also a point of the 3 pillars when we talk about school. Now, we're not only talking about their peers at school and the other kids. We can also be looking at the adults that they are interacting with in the school setting. You can have some teachers that feel that if a child is not learning, it's because they're idiots or they're stupid or other things that they may call them. When in fact, we have to understand that there are different methods that are valuable and essential for learning. Whether that is a texture or a feel, whether it is someone who can hear and visualize and learn that way, which is auditory, or again, the visual, where they are seeing the demonstrations or visualizing things that are presented to them. So again, or those who need to actually do it in order to learn it, so that the brain is going through the process. Again, if a teacher is more focused on the auditory teaching style, where they do a lot of talking and directing as opposed to hands-on or otherwise, that can have an impact on the child. They get frustrated, they don't speak out, the teacher makes them feel less than the other students, or the other students can target them thinking that that they are less than because they're learning it and this person's not. But again, it can be a lot to do with the teaching style. When you consider that and think back over your life as an adult or as as an older youth, you can try to visualize different periods in your life where you didn't get certain lessons, where you didn't get certain information, but then you hear somebody else explain it in a totally different way, or you see something on the TV that you can visually understand the processes or the content in which you're seeing. Or maybe, building a house, you're not understanding the theory, but when you actually go and start nailing 2x4s together, you pick it up like that and you are just right on it. And that is a big barrier in education and frustration and anger of children and youth, is that when they do not get the certain types of lessons or the certain types of leadership and teaching styles, then they can be labeled as other than, the smartest in the class, will say, and that can be very unfair as well. Sometimes it's not about pumping them full of medication. It's not about labeling them and giving them a diagnosis. Sometimes it's just that learning style that needs to be corrected, and that can be a challenge, especially when you have teachers that are responsible for 30, 40 students, or even 20, and they have a certain amount of time to get through the curricula. And this becomes an issue because they don't necessarily have time to do 3 different learning or teaching styles in order to reach those 3 main groups in the class. They may just focus on one and have a bit of the others mixed in, but the main focus on one, where a child feels like they are now not as worthy as the rest of the class, not as intelligent, and not as confident. And again, that can play into the social interaction with their peers, because now they don't feel like they belong, and other kids can be cruel, and we know that. So they can make that person feel even lower on top of that by picking on them. And of course, kids like to point out their strengths over others. Their confidence is built by feeling that they are superior to others, and they will find the weaknesses of other kids and pick on them to make themselves feel more inflated. And that's where the importance of raising awareness of that is important with your children and youth as they develop, so that it becomes more of a natural process for them to be able to accept people and their weaknesses, not just their strengths, and to recognize that even themselves, they have strengths and weaknesses that, again, they wouldn't want people to be, picking at and isolating their attention to. And so, again, it's all about that communication, which is very important. Now, I think that we'll call it at this point for today. We've covered that first section of the book, and we'll take a look at child exploitation and other things as on tomorrow's show. And then we'll also look at the business of gangs and violent crime. We'll look at online dangers. We'll look at addiction to technology and social media, as well as whether or not school suspensions are a reward or a consequence. Again, depending on the child and what their intent is, but also as to where they're fitting in. They may feel unsafe at school. They may feel uncomfortable. They may be afraid of bullies. So if your child all of a sudden has a pattern of feeling sick in the morning, stressed, not sleeping at night, upset stomach, headaches, all of these things, if it becomes a regular pattern, could actually be masking for the fact that they are concerned about going to school. They are scared. They are worried. They are stressed. They're being picked on. They're being bullied. They're being hit. All of these different things can be factors in which they are trying to cover up and not bring out, but instead, want to just bury their heads, pretend it doesn't exist, and to just stay home and avoid these circumstances instead of handling them. Once again, it is something to watch for in those different changes of behavior and patterns. But you can also look at the fact that when a child is stressed, feeling angry, feeling hurt, feeling scared, all of these different things can manifest in different ways. So the child may actually have an upset stomach because the stress they are carrying is being carried in that area and causing them to be sick with emotion or confusion. Headaches because they may feel stressed. They may not be sleeping well because they are thinking of all of these things. So again, that can contribute to the feelings of tiredness, of headaches, of nausea. All these different things can actually be manifestations of that fear, concern, and the stress that they're feeling. If they are worried about going to school, they can find excuses not to go. They can find, or you can find that they're having angry outbursts at home that they normally didn't. Again, they could be dealing with the emotion of what's going on outside of the home, in the community, or at school that you're unaware of. But again, they are directing that negative energy in a different direction because they don't want to draw attention to the problem. They then fear that as adults, we want to fix it. We want to get involved. But in their mind, they're thinking that at that point, that the person or the persons who are victimizing them or picking on them, or at least making them have that perception of such, that they will feel there's going to be worse retaliation and payback. So again, that's another big point of having that comfort zone that your child can come and speak to you, and that you're not going to get excited. You're not going to want to go and fix it immediately, but instead talk to your child and see and give them an opportunity to give you feedback about how they think it can be handled, or that if there's potential solutions. If they have somebody that they can talk through it all with, then it may help for them to be able to resolve it themselves and therefore make them feel more self-confident. And it's not so much just about having them deal with it, themselves so that you don't have to, but it gives them the self-confidence to feel like, hey, there was this issue, I was confused, I was angry, I was hurt, I was feeling picked on, I was feeling isolated, I was feeling this or that. But I was able to stand up and find a solution by talking it through with somebody in the home, whether it's the parents, the brother, sibling, whatever, it doesn't matter. If they can have that confidence and that ability to talk it through, sometimes that's all that they need in a non-threatening, in a non-judgmental way. So again, just those important parts of the communication. Once again, we've been going through some of the points in the book of Youth Violence and International Crisis, fighting violence by and against youth. And we'll continue on with going through this tomorrow night. We'll look at more warning signs and indicators, as well as ways to get involved and to try to intervene as well. So once again, we see so many times where, we can look at the big extreme or go to the extreme where there are mass acts of violence in schools. And a lot of times people look and go, oh, here was that warning sign. Here's this warning sign. Here's that indicator. Here's that indicator. And yet nobody was paying attention at the time. And in a lot of cases, it's because they don't know what to watch for, what the warning signs are, or how to just really accept it within ourselves. As parents, we don't want to think the worst of our children or to be judgmental of them in that way. We want to really keep them in a positive light. So sometimes we miss those indicators and warning signs as well, when we could have intervened and actually helped to find a solution, as opposed to allowing it to get to a point where the child feels that they are so isolated and at such risk, emotionally, mentally, physically, that they have to lash out. And again, there are so many different times that people go, oh, well, the child was bullied, no wonder they act like that. But why weren't people more aware of the warning signs and indicators beforehand? And that's what we're trying to bring with this series over the next several days, to bring some of that education awareness and the strategies for intervention to the forefront, so that you have those tools. Once again, this is James Cousineau coming to you from the ProPix TV studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, for a special edition of Live Chat with James. Once more, we've been talking about the book, Youth Violence and International Crisis. And no, I do not get paid for this as a promotion for the book. But again, it is a very important topic around the world to try to reduce the incidence of youth violence by and against youth. So again, there's no reason not to know the warning signs and indicators if you're willing to listen and learn. So thank you for tuning in to this episode. We'll see you tomorrow night at about 12:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And other than that, folks, you can always leave your comments and your thoughts in the comment section, regardless as to what platform you're watching this rebroadcast on. I do pay attention to the comments and the suggestions, as well as topic ideas for different episodes. So feel free to interact. This is as much your show as it is mine. So thanks for tuning in once more. This is James Cousineau coming to you from ProPix TV studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Take care, everyone, and stay safe.